Welcome back. A very special welcome to a man I respect enormously, both for his reportorial daring do as well as his sheer courage in covering one of the most dangerous beats in the world today, and that is the border of the United States, both sides of it for that matter. Ben Bergquam is his name. He is a well known featured reporter for Real America's Voice. We're very proud to have him both as a friend and as a colleague, and to catch up with him whenever we can in various garden spots of the universe. I gather you're in Arizona today. You were in the Darien Gap just yesterday, and I want to talk to you first about the Darien and what you saw there, Ben, and what is headed our way through it now.
Yeah, absolutely, Frank. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And we cover both sides. This is an ongoing fight. And really, to me, it's if not the most pivotal, at least one of the top three fights that we have in our country to determine whether or not we will remain a sovereign nation.
Amen.
That's why, I focus so heavily on the U.S. side, but going to Panama, going down to the Darien Gap, you really, and really all of the borders. So what we just finished a week long tour down in the Darien Gap, and to see
Remind us
how
what
it's
that
going there.
is. I know it's a feature of your reporting, but Ben, for this audience in particular, why is it such an important location in the migration routes north to the border
Well,
here?
it's basically for anyone coming up from South America, it's the entry point. Assuming they don't go on boats. Some people do take boats further around, but it's more difficult if you're out in the Pacific or even in the Gulf. And so most of the traffic that we're seeing that ends up at the Texas or Arizona or New Mexico or California borders all come through the Darien Gap. It's a 70, 80, 100 mile in some areas section of just dense, dangerous jungle. It basically is Panama's and the North America's border between North America and South America. There's no driving routes between there. So this has actually been a great thing for Panama for years. It's a natural border that they've used. There've been a lot of people that have tried to build a road or propose building a road, but thank God they haven't yet.
Mm.
And so it's kind of the last line of defense in protecting North America from South American invasion. Now, the thing
And
is
how
that
how
all
hard is
comes
it to
to
get
America.
through it, and how dangerous is that transit?
Well, it's been historically very dangerous, and it still is. It's one of the most dangerous jungles in the world. They have cougars and venomous snakes, and some of the most rugged terrain, cliffs, and weather, most violent weather that you find on the planet. And so
And some
all of those
hostile
factors,
natives too. Is that a
and
factor?
hostile natives. That's right. So we were
Yeah.
actually down with the Imbara people. They're the indigenous people of that region. There's three tribes that basically control that area, and we had the blessing of the Imbara chief and his third in command, and so they were taking us around. But this is an area. This is an area that he's even admitted. Many of his people have been involved in the violence that you see down
Mm.
there, partly out of protection of their community and their property, and unfortunately partly because of the criminality that comes with it. This is also a very high drug trafficking corridor. So the
Yeah.
cartels have drugs going through, and so there's just it's a dynamic, kinetic place.
And I think one of your colleagues, with whom, as I understand it, you were touring the place, Michael Yon, who's talked to us from time to time as well, says that maybe 1 out of 10 people passing through there don't make it as a result of these various hazards. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's the estimate that he gives, and that's who I was actually down there with Michael Yon,
Mhm.
amazing war correspondent, warrior, Green
Fabulous
Beret, and
guy.
now also focuses on the border as well. But yeah, that's his estimates. Around 10% don't make it, and
Mm.
when you see the people coming out, you understand that can be an accurate number. It is a very unpleasant place to be. Every single person that we've asked that's made it through has said they wouldn't recommend it anyone else to go through it. That's
Yeah.
assuming they got through and they come out with festering wounds on their legs, and it's just a horrific place to be.
Yeah, they obviously are still coming, though. What was your sense of the size of the surge that is now moving through those jungle areas and heading towards our border?
Well, to go back to the question before, how dangerous is it? It really depends on the route that you take. There are
Mm.
routes that can take you up to 2 weeks to get through. There is now a route that you can get through in 2 days. And what we just
Wow.
found out in this trip is that in Colombia, the cartels down there, the smugglers are actually selling routes. So the more that you pay, the shorter the route you get. the less you pay, the longer the route you get. So your chances of dying are exponentially higher if you can't pay for the better routes. Now, but what we're seeing is a massive influx into that area, and mostly through the shorter routes. So most of the people that we see coming through either can afford to pay it or are using themselves to pay the cartels. That means they're smuggling something, or they're going to be indebted to the cartels once they get up here. And these are, just so people understand, it's not Mexican cartels in the Darien Gap. There are different, you have Colombian
Mm-hmm.
cartels that they have to go through. So every section either has criminal organizations, MS-13, MS-18, or cartels, or some sort of criminal element that you have to pass through to get to that next spot. The
Wow.
worst part about what I saw this entire week I was down there was it's a difficult place to get through. But what we're doing, and we actually were there the same days that Secretary Mayorkas and Blinken were there. We were actually we were staying right next to the camp that Secretary Mayorkas flew into and then flew out of, and then said he had been at the Darien Gap. But the worst part is that we're finding out now, rather than helping to slow it down, this new controlled flow idea that the White House and Washington D.C. are pushing is basically just making it streamlined. So as the people come in, it used to be they would be stuck there for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, up to 2 weeks sometimes, before they would be able to cross through. Panama was trying to stop it, trying to push them back. Now, basically, what the U.S. government has done is paid Panama off to push people through. So instead of slowing it down, which was a natural prevention mechanism, the slower this takes people to get from point A to point B through each country, if it takes you 2 months to get there, you start messaging back home and say, hey, it's probably not worth it. If you can get from your home country to the United States within a week or 2 weeks, it's much more enticing to come.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Washington, D.C. is doing. They have opened the floodgates, and we were seeing it. It was a well-tuned machine. They come into the jungle, they get out of the jungle, they get on boats, they go down, they get in the camp, and within 24 hours, they're on to Costa Rica. And Costa Rica has the same controlled flow mechanism set up as well.
So we're watching the tractor beam that the Biden administration has created
That's right.
to encourage people to come and now to actually facilitate their travel here, operating at a high tempo. We have to take a quick break for just a second. We'll be right back with much more with Ben Bergquam, and we'll talk about a judge's order saying you can't lift Title 42, what that might mean for all of us, right after this.